Hello and welcome to my channel where it's Halloween all year long. My name is Lauren. Welcome. I am doing the Fear the Booktuber tag created by David at David's Book Reviews. I will leave that original tag video down below in the description or somewhere linked up top here. It's 10 questions all about our fears as people, as readers, horror booktube in general, so I'm really excited to get started with this, and a huge thank you to David for tagging me. These tags are so fun. I want to do a lot more of them, and so it's really great to have the opportunity to do that, especially during spooky season. So the first question is, what's your deepest, darkest fear? I feel like I have a lot of them. I have huge fears of open water, even being in places where I know there aren't sharks. I have huge psychological fears around being near or close to water. And I just have a very overactive imagination. If you want to check out my Jaws vlog where I go into that a little bit more, I'll link that too. But being in large bodies of water, I tend to associate that with carnivorous sharks. So that is a huge fear of mine. I also have huge fears around any kind of gigantic spider. So the scenes in Harry Potter, I think it's like the second one, Chamber of Secrets, where you have Aragog. Oh, hell no. And I think there's also scenes in one of the Lord of the Rings films where you have huge carnivorous spiders that are attacking Frodo. Other than those kind of creatures and those kind of places that cause me to feel immense amounts of fear, I also have a lot of fears around death and dying, more specifically those whom I love dying. That is like a huge phobia of mine that I've talked about quite a bit on a podcast that I have, Beyond the Veil. It's something I'm definitely trying to work through, and I feel like reading books that revolve around that topic can be helpful when I'm in specific kind of mindsets to kind of help me process things in a very cathartic way if, again, I'm in that kind of mindset. So that was like a very real, like raw and vulnerable answer, but that is the reality. Like that is something because of my experiences with very traumatic passings of people in my life at various stages of it. And so that does play into who I am as a reader, and when those things come up, I will have reactions to them. Moving on to the second question, which is, what's the scariest novel you've read this year, and who's your new favorite scary author you have read this year? I have to say the scariest novel I've read in 2022 would have to be Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. It contains a lot of body horror and an unreliable narrator, which is always a good time. But I think the part that scares me the most is that somebody could come in with such good intentions and yet cause so much harm, especially to the people that they love the most. It is a book about a young boy who is phasing out of high school, phasing out of his teen years. And so he plays pranks with his friends one night with like this mannequin, and things get out of hand. He sees this mannequin just kind of come to life and walk out of the theater, and chaos ensues from there. You have somebody who is doing horrendous things from a place of great love and care, and it's just horrific to think that so much harm can be caused when people think that they're trying to avoid more harm. It's just frightening. It's scary. It is horrific. And a new scary author that I cannot stop recommending is going to be Laurel Hightower, whose novellas Below and Crossroads I have read recently. What I think makes Laurel Hightower such a great writer is that within just a few amount of pages, you really start to care about the people that you're supposed to be caring about. And I think doing that in a novella is incredibly impressive. Crossroads is a book that includes a lot of grief. You have a mother who is still processing the death of her son and what lengths she will go in order to interact with that son again, and you just want to tell her like, no, stop, like you don't need to do this. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but horrendous things ensue, and can't recommend Laurel Hightower enough. The third question is all about a novel or a series that I am too scared to read. I had to think long and hard about this one, and what came up for me was anything written by Eric LaRocca. This includes Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes, You've Lost a Lot of Blood, We Can't We Can Never Leave This Place. All these books sound amazing, but I've heard from many people on Booktube or Book Instagram that these books are heavy and they're bleak and they're dark and they include possibly a lot of like body horror, that I'm a little nervous when so many people have those kind of reviews to then pick these kind of books up, but it does make me very curious. So I'm a little afraid, I'm a little nervous, a bit hesitant to pick up anything by Eric LaRocca. So if you have any recommendations on where I should start when it comes to their works, it'd be much appreciated, so leave those down in the comments. The fourth question asks, what frighteningly good horror author you feel needs more attention on Booktube? One answer that comes up for me is Brendan Deneen, who wrote The Chrysalis, which I read recently as of this recording, that I have not heard too many people talk about, especially not on horror YouTube. It's a mix of sci-fi and horror, but like you really are focusing on this larger allegory of transitioning into adulthood and what that means for this one specific couple who moved to this new home, and within this home there is something that is otherworldly that they have to kind of deal with, and they can't escape this, just like you can't escape growing up into adult and doing the whole adulting thing. So that's kind of my allegorical interpretation of this like sci-fi horror blended novel that I wish more people would read, and I think people would love it if they picked it up. Okay, number 5. What's your favorite scary movie? If I had to choose, it probably would be a slasher, and I think what comes to mind for me is Trick or Treat, which came out in 2007. This film is a cult classic that I don't think gets a lot of love. It is a movie that went straight to like home video release. It did not get a theater release, which is such a bummer because I think it is cinematic gold. It plays on a lot of the tropes of the horror genre, and you are set up to think something is happening or something is going to happen, and then it totally flips that on its head. And all of these seemingly disparate stories, these storylines on the night of Halloween in that one specific town, all come together somehow, and they all kind of interact with each other, which I don't even know how they did that. Like, that is just very impressive on behalf of the director and all those involved. Question 6, whose channel produces the scariest videos? That honor goes to Katrina Brown. I really love the things she creates in the intros of her videos and also the content she publishes on her Instagram account. Super spooky, super fun, have like a little bit of playfulness to them that is very much my vibe, but definitely scary, spooky stuff. I love that what she creates on Instagram and YouTube. Number 7, a new horror tuber whose subscriber count is terrifyingly low that deserves more attention. I absolutely love Michelle Melancolia's Instagram account, her YouTube. I also feel like she has very similar tastes to mine, but she reads a lot of like old school horror or things that I don't necessarily gravitate towards instantly. So it's really nice to like expand my horror horizons, so to speak. You could tell she has like so much passion for what she does, and anytime she posts something, I'm so eager to watch. Ooh, I love this question. Number 8. If you meet Pennywise, what fictional character or creature would it turn into? Absolutely, without a doubt. It would turn into the Crypt Creeper. What? It would turn into the Crypt Keeper that like hosted or narrated the Tales of the Crypt TV show back in the day. My father loved watching that show and I loved it too, but I was young, probably like elementary or middle school, when I walked into the room and just kind of sat down and enjoyed the show with my dad because he really loved that kind of spooky stuff. And yeah, I would have nightmares. And even to this day, I'm like, that is still the creepiest thing I've ever seen. Hands down, like super creepy. Another character that comes to mind is that like demon character on the TV show Evil that comes into the dreams when one of the main characters is experiencing sleep paralysis. You don't really know if it is a real experience or not. And I think that also adds the terrifying nature. But this creature, I watched the show recently, like it just came out in the past like 5 years, and I still, when I go back and rewatch that show or like keep up to date on the series, I will have moments in my mind as like I'm going to sleep at night where like I kind of think about that creature like hovering on top of me like it does in the show, and it's just, it keeps me up at night. Number 9, what novel scared you so much it gave you nightmares or made you uncomfortable? I feel like there were a few books that were so atmospheric and spooky that I read this past summer that kind of kept me up at night a little bit, or like kind of made me on edge as I was getting ready for bed. One of those books is going to be Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, and the second one is going to be by Jennifer Fawcett called Below the Stairs, I think. Those books both share a kind of paranormal haunting aspect to them, and even though one is based in a hotel or motel and the other is a home, it is still super spooky in the way that you are kind of walking through those spaces, those settings with the main characters. I was like really absorbed into those stories and really kind of putting myself there. So I think that's what added to like the spookiness. And I read a lot of those books like late at night where the spooky element just like skyrockets because you're like reading about hauntings and murderers, and they're great books. And the final prompt is to tag the scariest booktubers that I know. And for that, I'm going to tag all of you. I would absolutely love to know what scares you, what thrills you, all the book recommendations. This tag was actually really fun, and I think it allows you to get to know me a little bit more and see why I choose the books that I do, because I think a lot of who we are, what scares us, comes out in our book choices and how we then experience reading those books too. So thank you so much for watching. If you do end up doing this tag after watching this video, please make sure you mention me in the description or somewhere so I can watch that and learn a little bit more about you as a reader and a person. And I'll see y'all in my next video.